Burkers here. I'm just going to go over a couple little misconceptions that popped up from this week's quiz on EduCake before we move on to the next lesson. So looking here, we have an animal cell. Most of you knew quite well that this thing in the center that controls the cell is the nucleus. The nucleus also holds the DNA, which didn't pop up on the quiz, but is something that you do need to know. Now, number 2 here, the rest of the cell is the cytoplasm. Now, the cytoplasm is something that a lot of people forget about quite easily because it's just the cellular goop. Where everything else sits in. So, for example, if you're thinking like a soup, like a vegetable soup, you'll have all your vegetables within the broth, and the cytoplasm is like the broth of the soup. However, the cytoplasm is very important to the cell because without the cytoplasm, most of the reactions and the things that has to happen in the cell couldn't take place. So the cytoplasm is where reactions take place. So without that cytoplasm, there would be no reactions happening in the cell, and the cell itself wouldn't technically be alive. Now remember, this is a simplified version of the cell. Cells also have mitochondria and ribosomes, and you will also see that this outer thing here, which isn't labeled, but is the cell membrane. Just so you remember that. One other thing I quickly want to talk about is the difference between a cell and a tissue. So we covered this a little bit last week, but some of you were thinking that inside the cell was a tissue. However, we have a cell, one cell. When we have a group of cells together that work together, that's what we call a tissue. So tissue is that group of cells working together. That group of cells then comes together with different groups of cells. So we have a tissue of different types of cells. So different types of tissues coming together. That would be an organ. And remember, multiple organs coming together. This is my attempt at the circulatory system. Gives us an organ system. So you need to make sure that you are reading the questions carefully because there will be questions from previous topics coming into your EduCake quizzes. So for example, there was a question about which organ system coordinates the body, and some of you put the nucleus. Yes, we're talking about cells this lesson, but you still need to remember from previous lessons. So the organ system that coordinates all the actions in the body is the nervous system. Not just the brain, because it works with the nerves throughout your body and your spinal cord. And while the nucleus controls everything in a cell, it doesn't control everything in the entire body. All right, hopefully you have all that clear now. So I'd like you to move on to watch the video lesson for this week, taking your notes, and then trying this week's EduCake quiz.